Hey everyone, it's Ethan or Miss back again for another video today, and welcome back to the channel, guys. We're here again, for yet another Call of Duty League video. It's been a little while, obviously. I did plan on making a few while we had this little mid-season break, but I ended up deciding not to because of how crazy Stage 2 was. It was just kind of hard to even really make videos about it, I guess, so... we are going to be talking about the Pro-Am Classic. I didn't do my predictions for it because, again, you just have absolutely no information, and unfortunately there wasn't like an actual set bracket or pick'ems that you could do for it, and it would have been a lot of work to actually go through every match. So I just decided not to, but nonetheless, let's go through it. We'll go through every match. Now, I'm not going to lie, guys, I did not watch a single match from this Pro-Am Classic. I watched a couple of highlights from some of the matches, mainly the Toronto matches and the finals. But, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it once we get through it. So to start the weekend off, we had Strike X versus Toronto Ultra, which was a pretty interesting series. Strike didn't have a great performance over the week at all, but, I mean, obviously they are one of the 4 amateur teams that actually made it in to this Pro-Am Classic. So nonetheless, we continue on. Atlanta versus Seattle, a pretty standard series, I feel, a 3-1, not all that surprising. Florida beating the Rocker 3-1, again, I feel like it's also not that surprising. Optic beating the Ultra Academy EU, not that surprising. It was a pretty good showing from both Ultra Academy teams. We'll get into that in just a moment. Again, Ultra Academy NA reverse sweep the Major 2 or Stage 2 champions of the LA Gorillas. The Gorillas did not have a good weekend. I mean, obviously they were looking really good to start off the series, but then the Ultra Academy woke up and reverse swept the Gorillas on day 1, which was pretty cool. Then you move on, Boston versus Paris. Boston takes that pretty easily. New York versus oh my god. New York versus the Thieves was not a close series at all, a 3-0 from the Subliners. Team War, again, another amateur team that didn't have a great weekend. The Royal Ravens beat them somewhat easily. Then you go to the Ultra and Surge, 3-1 for Ultra, but the Surge did not look great this past week at all. I don't know how much stock I really want to put into that Ultra win, but nonetheless, we continue on. Strike X, again, losing. They they lost to Atlanta 3-0, not all that surprising. Ultra Academy EU gets 3-0'd by the Rocker, which was pretty surprising just because they put up a better showing against Texas than they did Minnesota, and Minnesota didn't really look that great this weekend either. Then you look at the Florida Mutineers and Optic Texas series, which is a pretty interesting one because the Mutineers 3-0 Texas, which is very interesting. And of course, Optic ends up beating Atlanta later on in the weekend. It was a weird weekend, but continuing on, Paris 3-2 over the Gorillas. So the Gorillas lose 2 Map 5 so far. Not great from them. Ultra Academy NA are able to win over the Breach in 5. That was a very good series. Team War versus New York. Again, Team War didn't play that great. They ended up going 0-3, I believe. Then the Thieves versus the Ravens. A pretty clean series from the Thieves. Obviously, Harry was filling in for Gizmo. Who knows how that will affect the Royal Ravens in the future. And then again, continuing on, Strike with their one match of the week, or their one win of the weekend, was it over the Seattle Surge. Again, I don't know how much stock I put into Seattle. They did not look great. They went 0-3. They lost to Atlanta, which isn't surprising. They lost to the Ultra, which isn't surprising. But then they lost to Strike X, which, I mean, up until that series was 0-2. So who knows, really, I guess. Then you go to the Toronto and Atlanta series. A pretty close series for the most part. Atlanta ends up edging them out. Then to go on to the last EU Ultra Academy versus was against the Florida Mutineers. They ended up losing. Mutineers had a very strong weekend, going, I think it was, 3-0? Yeah, 3-0 in group play. Continuing on, Texas ends up beating Minnesota 3-1. Ultra Academy NA ends up losing to Paris 3-1. And I was hoping for one of the amateur teams to make it into the actual weekend bracket. If it would have been any team, it would have been the Ultra Academy NA. If they had have gotten one more map over Paris here, if they had have gone to either a map 5 or won the series, I think the Ultra Academy would have made it in instead of Paris, which would have been pretty cool. I would have liked to have seen that. Unfortunately, they weren't able to. But quickly talking about all three Toronto teams, they all had a pretty decent weekend. EU struggled the most, but NA and the actual Toronto Ultra played pretty well. So that's a good thing, a bright future for everyone on the Ultra organization. The only reason why Paris made it into the bracket instead of the Ultra Academy NA was because the head-to-head. So Paris ended up beating Toronto 3-1. They were exactly tied in map counts, both of these teams. So again, if Toronto had won one more map against Paris here or in one of their previous series, they would have made it into the bracket. So unfortunately, we didn't get any amateur teams in the final bracket, but continuing on, finishing off Friday night, a 3-0 from the Breach over the Gorillas. So again, the Gorillas go 0-3 this weekend. How much, it's kind of shaping up as if that stage 2 win, or major 2 win, was a fluke. I mean, it's very possible to argue that. I'm not really going to chalk them up yet. I still have a lot of faith in this team. I had a lot of faith in them before Spart was on the team, and I mean, what they did on Major 2, the absolute crazy losers run, who knows? So I'm definitely not counting them out yet. It'll be interesting to see how they do. Moving forward, of course, we've got matches this weekend, which is very exciting. Continuing on, we've got the Thieves versus Team War. Again, like I said, War went 0-3 on the weekend. They only won, I think, 2 maps. Yeah, one against the Ravens and one against the Subliners. And that was actually the only map the Subliners had lost in group play. Was to Team War, which was pretty interesting. Nonetheless, Thieves 3-0 Team War and Subliners 3-0 Royal Ravens to finish off group play. So again, Subliners, of course, is definitely the talk of the weekend. They 3-0 the Ravens, they 3-1 War, and they 3-0 the Thieves. Ended up going 9-1 map count in group play, which is pretty solid. Then you move on to the bracket. You'll see here, of course, round 1, Texas versus Atlanta. A pretty fun series, and I was talking to my friend about it. Literally, all Texas needed to do was steal a respawn, and they did. They were able to steal that respawn, and the Search and Destroys carried them through that series to move on. And then you look at the Thieves and Breach. Honestly, I was not expecting the Thieves to win this series. They didn't look very good on the weekend, or in group play, I guess. But neither did Boston. Boston looks like they might have taken a step back, so who knows? Maybe this off-season break, or this mid-season break, it could be a detriment for Boston. Who knows? Florida, Toronto, honestly was kind of surprised Toronto won it. Of course, Toronto came off a very poor Major 2. They really struggled. They ended up playing pretty solid over the weekend for the most part, though. I think all of their series ended up being 3-1. Ultra moves on to the second round. Subliners then 3-0 the Legion, and which is pretty good. So then their map count is up to 12-1 on the weekend. So obviously they were having a fantastic week. Then you go to the semis. We have Texas versus LA Thieves. Pretty clean series from the Thieves overall. I would imagine Texas would have won that series if Illy was in, although General did play pretty well for the most part. But again, Illy's a pretty big hole, especially communication-wise for Texas. So I feel like they definitely needed that. So Thieves end up moving on to the finals, which is pretty fun to see. It's the first finals appearance for them, so that's nice. And then the semifinals, we have Toronto versus New York, which I feel like most people weren't expecting that heading into this weekend. But again, Subliners win, moving their map count up to 15-3 on the weekend. And then you go to the finals. It was just a best of 5. New York 3-1 over the Thieves in pretty easy fashion. New York ended up going 18-4 map count over the weekend, which is a crazy, crazy weekend. So good for them. Obviously, congrats to the organization. Kismet played pretty decently over the weekend. I'm intrigued to see how it continues on. I haven't added it to the Google Sheets yet for you guys, but I will. Obviously, I've shown you guys that in the past. I'm very intrigued to see how this New York team does here in Stage 3 or Major 3. Of course, they look pretty good. I mean, 18-4 map count over the weekend is pretty damn solid. They win the event. They win $100,000. And I'm not sure how much this actually counts as an event win, but if it does, I believe that is Crimsix's 39th tournament win. And it was actually his 50th finals appearance, which is pretty cool. So shout out to Crim. Almost 40 event wins in 50 event finals, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys all so much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy. Let me know your thoughts on the Pro-Am. Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable person about this because I don't watch challengers very often. It's pretty rare. I just kind of hear through the grapevine. Really, I don't follow challengers as much as I should be. And as well, I just had a very busy week and weekend, so I wasn't able. And now that I work weekends again, it's a little bit harder for me to watch these matches. But nonetheless, I'm definitely going to be following closer this upcoming week. So, thank you guys all so much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.